This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to those joining us from another time zone. My name is Emily Noakes, and I am SECOORA's Marketing and Communications Specialist. I will be moderating the webinar today. So thank you, everyone, for joining our Coastal Observing in Your Community webinar series. This has been a long-standing webinar series that we've had for several years. So if you're interested in checking out any webinars we've done in the past, they are all archived on our website and our YouTube channel as well. So as many of you know, we are the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observing Regional Association, or SECOORA, and we are one of 11 of the regional coastal observing systems that make up the Integrated Ocean Observing System, also called IOOS. I know many of you are returning customers to our webinar series, but I always like to give a brief overview in case we have some new folks who might not be super familiar with what we do. The states that we represent are North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And we mainly collect data and create tools that support human populations, coastal economies, and a healthy, sustainable environment. Those of you who are just now coming in, we're just doing a brief overview of SECOORA before we get started with the webinar. So SECOORA's mission is to observe, understand, and increase awareness of our coastal ocean, supporting community, economic, and ecosystem resilience through strong and diverse partnerships. These pictures are some examples of some projects that we do with high-frequency radar and gliders, some citizen science projects, and our offshore buoys. I would like to make a brief announcement that registration is now open for SECOORA's 2025 annual meeting, which will be May 14th through the 15th at Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. You are welcome to scan the QR code to access our meetings page or just go to secoora.org. There is a big green button at the top right-hand corner of the screen where you can learn more about this meeting. We are also looking for sponsors. So if you know of someone who might like to sponsor, or if you would like to sponsor yourself, you are welcome to send us an email at communications@secoora.org to start the conversation. Now let's get into the reason why everybody is here. Today's webinar is going to be focused around a data portal demo, so you all can understand a little bit more about how to use SECOORA's data portal and how to do a few specific things that Axiom is going to show you. So our speakers today are with Axiom Data Science. Axiom Data Science is an informatics and software development firm focused on scalable solutions supporting data management, integration, and visualization. Axiom Data Science is now part of Tetra Tech, a leading provider of consulting and engineering services worldwide. So with that, I am going to make Brian Stone with Axiom the presenter, so that he can start the overview.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You should be able to present now, Brian.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to try a tab. There we go.
Looks great.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that intro, and welcome everybody. Please feel free to interrupt with questions or things that that you're interested in seeing, or you can put them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat, and we can either come back to that or interrupt the demo and look at something else. Okay, so this is the home page. You can follow along at portal.secoora.org. And we're going to start with the top. So aside from the logo, the navigation at the top will stay there throughout the portal. So any page you're on, you can get back to the home page by clicking on home. You can get to the catalog by clicking on the catalog, etc. So we're just going to look at these navigation items first and explore them, and then we'll do some interactive visualizations. So first of all, catalog is a good place to start. There are a couple other entry points on the homepage to get there that take you to specific points in the catalog, but this is a nice overview. you get a search box where you can type in whatever you want, and if you start to type something in, you're going to get an autocomplete, and you can choose from some suggestions, or you can choose from the tags on the right side. So if there's a topic of interest, you can click on one of the tags. If you click on one of these items, you'll see metadata and in some cases a visualization. In most cases, there are downloads available. And in many cases, you can add to map. So you'll see all the options that are available for each item that you click on. You'll see that within search, each type of result is represented as a different tab. So the first tab is all results put together. The second tab is just sensor stations. The third is data layers. And the fourth is moving platforms. There are a couple others that we won't get into today, but you can explore them on your own. Looking at sensor stations, again, this is one way to get into sensor stations, and we'll look at another way in a minute. So in this case, we get different tags on the right side. So a couple nice ones to keep in mind are variable type. So if you're interested in a sensor station that collects data of a particular variable type, you can find it in this list and click on it. So if I want CDOM, if I click on that, it's reduced to just 11 stations. If I add another search to this, if I, for instance, search on a particular affiliate, it's going to reduce that list more. I can always clear a search out by clicking on the X, or I can clear out a particular tag or search term. If I click on a sensor station, I'm going to get a visualization of sensors at that station and recent data or historical data depending on what's available. All of the charts in the portal operate in the same way. They'll look a little different depending on how big they are, and we'll look at a smaller version in a minute. You can always enlarge the chart by clicking on the enlarge button. You can adjust auto scale, you can adjust time bin. A nice button to keep in mind is the expand axis bounds to full range. If you click on that, you'll see the full range of data. If you hover over a chart, you're going to see whatever data is underneath the mouse. So in this case, we're looking at daily bin data, air temperature at Port Richey. As I move my mouse across, I'll see what the values are, the min, max, and mean for that day. If I see an area of interest, I can drag my mouse across and the chart will re-render. I can use the calendar icon to select a particular time period of interest. I can click on downloads to download data for what I'm looking at on screen. So most of our downloads for sensor stations go through ERDAP, so I can use ERDAP tools to download CSV, NetCDF, or a different type of chart. If I want to just download an image of the chart I'm looking at, I can just click on this download image button. If I want more detail about a particular sensor, I can click on that sensor title. And I'll get a larger chart again. All of the same types of options, a legend on the bottom, but in this case, I also get quartile results. I'll expand out and we can see, so it looks like we have all passing values, but if we didn't have passing values, we'd get suspect, fail, and missing data. So there would be some red in the plot below the chart that shows where data is suspect or failing. Back to the catalog. The next type of result that I want to look at are data layers. In this case, we just get metadata about a data layer, and we have to add it to the map if we want to see the visualization. Downloads are available. I can see other layers that have the same tagging. So if I'm interested in other shipping and navigation layers, I can click on that, and that tag is auto-selected, and I get a list of other shipping and navigation data layers. The add to map button adds the layer to the main map where we can add multiple layers at the same time. The next data type is moving platforms, which are for the most part gliders. So if I click on that, I get a list of recent gliders. And if I continue scrolling, it goes back to historical. But this first one looks like an ongoing glider, like it's in process right now, and I can click on it to get a visualization for the glider. So in the upper right, I get a curtain plot. This is showing a 2D side-on view with time being the x-axis and depth being the y-axis. And then in this case, the color is sea surface temperature, seawater temperature. If I want to look at a different variable, I can click on the visualize button and see, for instance, salinity. I can choose a different color palette, and then I can hover over the plot to get profile data. If you look, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. There are two other plots here. There's a top-down plot. This is just a map on the upper left. Again, I can hover to get profile data. And then this 3D map. This one I can't hover over to get profile data, but I can manipulate it. So I can drag it around, or if I right-click, I can scooch it left and right. I can use my mouse scroller to zoom in and out. If I hover over either the 2D plot or the map, the 3D plot and the other plot are going to highlight where my mouse is. So this is a way to orient yourself. I don't know if you can see on the 3D plot, there's a little red bar that's moving across the plot. And on the 2D plot on the left, the map plot, there's a dot that's moving around the map, so I can orient myself. These can also be added to the map. You can see there's an add deployment to map button, and there are several downloads available in a bunch of different formats. Okay, moving along the toolbar. So we can get into the data types a little deeper. If somebody has a particular question right now, I can add more detail now. Moving along the toolbar, I'm going to skip over map for a second and data views and go to settings, just because that's a nice one to have right away. On settings, I can set my map base layer. I can show a grid on the map. I can set my default color palette, my default time period, and I can also set my default units for the site. If I'm interested in a particular unit, I can click on the unit manager, and when I'm there, I can find just the parameter I want to set the units for and set them up. There are other advanced settings, including managing data views, which we can look at in a minute. Share, this is a nice button to use if you have done something that you want to show somebody else. If you click on the share button, you're going to get a unique link for the page that you're on, and you can send that to another user. You can also use it to bookmark that page if you want to be able to get back to it later. This can be useful if you've zoomed into a particular area on a plot, if you've created a map view that you like, that's zoomed in on a particular area and time period of interest. You can share that with someone else so they don't have to go and find that data and they can see what you're seeing. The help dropdown lets you open up a documentation site. I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay, under help, there's an interactive guide and a documentation link. Documentation links you off to a full documentation for the website. This is nice. It has animated GIFs. It has links to examples and a description for how to do almost everything that we're doing on the website today. The interactive guide offers you a little overlay, and that can help walk you through certain tasks on the site. If you're having trouble and you need help, click on the having trouble button or the feedback button in the upper right. This is nice because it sends us exactly the page that you're looking at, so it can be really helpful for us to help you find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for a particular asset, data layer, whatever, you can type in what you're looking for, type your name, your email address, confirm you're not a robot, and then it'll send us one of those share links, so we're looking at exactly what you're looking at. So if you're looking at a plot and you're confused by what you're seeing, it can be really helpful if you keep the plot there, hit the feedback button, and send that to us. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to look at is the map view. And there are a couple different ways into the map. You can click on the map in the navigation, or you can just click on Explore Real-Time Data from the homepage. So I'm going to use the map button. So right away we see SECOORA sensors. So these are all the sensor stations in the region, and these are the same sensor stations we saw in search. This is just a spatial way of looking at them. So you'll notice that we're looking at binned hexes of data. these are aggregating all of the sensor stations within each hex, and it's taking the average of the variable that I have selected. So in this case, I've selected water temperature. I can change that by clicking on the variable types dropdown. I don't think you can see the whole dropdown, but there's a whole list there. So for instance, if I'd like to see air pressure, I can select that and I get a heat map of air pressure in the region. If I hover over a hex, I'm going to see how many sensor stations are underneath the mouse, an average of a few different values for recent data, assuming there is recent data. And I can click on that to see larger versions of these plots. That's gray.
Brian, we lost you.
The variable that I have selected. So in this case, there isn't air pressure data at that gray hex. As I zoom in, these little hexes will redraw themselves until they resolve into actual stations. Again, I can hover to see recent data or what data is available for gray stations. And I can click to get a plot in the lower left. So this is the same type of plot that we looked at with the search result. It's just a little smaller. So again, I can expand the axes to see the full range of data. I can zoom in and out. I can use the slider on the bottom. I can go to downloads, etc. The buttons that have been collapsed under this little gear are, because it's such a small plot, are auto scale and time bin. So I can still manipulate those. They're just under that little drop down, and I can enlarge the plot. If I want to see the detail page for this plot, see what quality control data is available, etc., I just click on the title and I get the large plot again. I should be zoomed into the same time period that I was looking at on the map. And so I can just continue exploring from there. All right, I'm going to head back to the map. Other ways to filter data on the site or on the map. So we looked at variable types. By default, you see all sensors so that you can see where other sensors are, even if they don't have the variable that you're looking at. But if you unclick Show All, you'll see that now I'm only seeing sensors that have air pressure. I can also filter by source. So only sites that are from particular sources show up. By platform, buoy, or fixed. And again, by tag. If there's a name of a sensor station that I know of, I can just type it in, or a location that I'm interested in, I can start to type it in. So if I start to type Petersburg in, I'm getting stations near St. Petersburg. Okay, so that's the sensor layer. I'm going to go ahead and hide it for a second and show how to add other layers. So I can either go back to the catalog and find a layer I'm interested in, or there's kind of a search shortcut where you can click on Find Data. You guys got I already searched for something. I can click on Find Data and I get a small version of the catalog. Within this, I can choose to search spatially. So if I check that box, as I pan around the map, that search will update. So it's only showing data layers that intersect with the area that I'm looking at on the map. I can change result types to look at just data layers or just platforms. I can filter by tag. This is a list of tags. So if I'm interested in marine industry layers, I can click on that. Or I can just search for what I want. And the temperature, have I misspelled something? Huh. Oh, I had a tag selected. So if I start to search for temperature, I'll get different data layers that have temperature in the title. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to start, let's look for a HAB layer. So a couple of ways to look for that would be to just type HAB in the search box, or I can click on tags. And here I've got harmful algal bloom layers. and I can reduce to just this layer. If I want details about this layer, I can click on the title and I get the full metadata record, or I can just go ahead and add it to the map. So I've added it to the map, and now it's showing up along with SECOORA sensors. For now, I've hidden SECOORA sensors, but we'll show them together in a minute. This layer works very similar to how the sensor layer worked, but it's got a couple different features. So first of all, you can see the hexes. So that's aggregating the data. And in this case, we're looking at a mean count. I can change the color palette so that it's not the same as the sensor station layer to something different. I can change the auto scale if I want so that I get more variation on the low end. So let's change this to 10,000. I can change the measurement so that in this case I can choose between Karenia brevis abundance mean or sum. And again, I can hover to get details or a time series of data under that hex. If I zoom in, I'll eventually get actual measurements, and I can hover and click for a time series. An additional tool that's available for this layer is a polygon tool. So if I'm interested in finding out about a time series within this area near Tampa, I can draw a polygon, and I get a time series for data within that polygon. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so now if I want to see sensor stations on the same view, there you go. So I get both of them. Okay, I want to show you the next item in the toolbar, and we'll come back to the map to work on that in a minute. So the next thing in the toolbar is data views. So data views come in two flavors. Everybody gets access to a certain set of data views that are default to this portal. So in this case, there's some hurricane demonstrations and Carolina water levels, or you can create your own data view. So let's first look at one of the data views that we've created ahead of time. So this is a data view for Hurricane Matthew. And what this allows us to do is compare time series data on a comparison plot and annotate the data view. So at the top, there's a description about what's going on. We've embedded a video that shows Hurricane Matthew from space, some satellite imagery. On the right side are the plots that we've chosen to highlight. And then on the left side, there we've compared wind speed to barometric pressure as the hurricane passed over these different sensor stations. Up here on the map, we're showing the location of the sensor stations that were featured. So here you can see the wind speed spiked, the barometric pressure dipped, and if the hurricane had come close enough, you'd see that dip in wind speed as the eye came over. If I hover, I can get details about each of the plots that are on the comparison. If I want to simplify that plot, I can start to hide different elements. Okay, so now let's make a data view. So there are a few different ways to make a data view, but it always involves bringing up a time series and adding items to the data view. So any time series you're looking at, you should see a little star next to it that indicates that you can add that item to a data view. So let's go back to the map. And in this case, let's try to create a comparison between some Karenia brevis abundance data and some other physical parameters. So I'm going to just hide SECOORA sensors again. And I'm going to draw a polygon around this area again. Okay, so now we've got our plot, and I'm going to create a new data view. So if I click on the star, I get this little drop down, and it says, default, and that's a default data view. I can just put stuff there if I want, or I can create new data views. I can create as many data views as I want, and I can share them with other users. If I create data views, they aren't going to show up for other people. I would have to share it with that person explicitly for them to see it. So let's create a new data view, and I'm going to call it Karenia abundance comparison. So now I get a new item, and I'm going to click on Save to Data View. And now with this particular plot, I can add it to a comparison chart, so I get an Add to Compare chart option also, and I'm going to do that. Now, if I go to that data view, I'll see my plot on the right side, and then my comparison plot has been started on the left. At the top, I see the polygon that I selected, and I see the title as well. While in this view, I can edit the title, and I can add a description. Now, if I want to share the data view as is, I can click on the Share button. So there's two share buttons here. There's the share button at the top. If I use the share button at the top, you're also going to get the map view that I'm looking at. If I use just the data view button, you're only going to get, if I were to share that with you, you'd only get that data view. You could import that data view into your views. So that's a nice way to just share one data view, which is usually the best way to go. And I'll share it in a minute. Going back to the map, now I want to find a sensor station in this area. So I'm going to hide Carenia brevis. I'm going to bring up SECOORA sensors, and I'm going to look at water temperature instead of air pressure. This I happen to know is a pretty good one in St. Petersburg. Again, it loaded up. I'm going to expand the time series out. So I don't know if you remember, the Carenia brevis data cut out in 2015. So if we're going to make a comparison, we need something that offers data back to 2015. And in this case, it offers data from 2014 on. So I'm going to add it to my data view, and I'm going to add it to the comparison chart. Before we go look at that comparison chart again, I want to just demonstrate another thing that we can do with sensor stations. So I'm going to enlarge it to do that. Since this time series has more than 3 years of data, we've calculated seasonal statistics for this time series, and that you can see that's the repeated pattern in the background. So the pink is mean to 90th percentile. The light blue is mean to 10th percentile. The mean is that gray dotted line. The all-time highs for each time period are the red, and the all-time lows are the blue. Or I can hide the seasonal statistics and just look at the data. Since we have seasonal statistics, we can also offer an anomaly plot. So this can be a way to find out when was the temperature highest, when was the temperature lowest. I can zoom in on this, I can hover to see the values, and I can rebin by weeks, days, or months. We also have this annual averages plot, and this is a yearly comparison to those seasonal statistics. So I can go through years and look at these. So we'll take advantage of that in the data view in a minute. Okay, so that's a quick exploration of different chart types. Since we've added our water temperature to our data view, I can get there by clicking on the data view button here, or I can click on the data view button at the top. And you can see that the star data views, those are the defaults, and I get a little icon for a person because I created those. So I'm going to click on the one that I created. And now I'm getting a comparison between water temperature and Carenia brevis, my water temperature plot at the top, and my Carenia brevis plot at the bottom. So in this case, the comparison chart needs a little bit of cleaning up. So I expand the time period out, and I'm going to zoom into the area where we have overlap. And it looks like we don't have a ton of overlap. So that's not great. We can compare between the seasonal averages and the Carenia brevis, but let's see if we can get a better comparison back on the map. Okay, so I'm going to hide SECOORA sensors, and I'm going to go to search and look for sea surface temperature. Let's see what comes up. And I need to remember to clear out my tag. Okay, and so at the top, I get this grist layer. So this is a global sea surface temperature layer, and I happen to know that I can click on it to get a time series, which is a nice feature. This is a new layer for us. It's an improved version of this layer, and it's a lot more performant than the past layers that we've had. I can do many of the same things I could do with the Carenia brevis layer. I can change the color palette. I can change the scale. And in this case, I can auto set for data in view. I could get better resolution. And then on the bottom, this little ticker here is going to give me a time selector for just that layer, since that layer represents just one moment in time. Okay, so I'm going to reset the auto. And in this case, we're interested in water temperature in this area near Tampa, but we want a longer time series. And this data layer goes all the way back to 2020 or 2002, I believe. So I'm going to click on this data layer and I'm going to get a time series. Sorry, 2009. So now we get a nice time series of water temperature data in this area. And this will make a better comparison than the sensor station that we selected. I can add it to the data view. And now when I go back to the data view, I get a comparison between, let's see, I'm going to expand this out. Okay, I'm not actually seeing the sensor station. I'm not sure why, but that's okay, because at this point we want to compare to the model data. And we get a nice comparison between the sensor station and the model data. So we can compare water temperature to Carenia brevis measurements. And as I hover, I am seeing the sensor station data. It's just not being visualized right now. I wanted to also show one other option here. If I want to adjust any of the time series plots on the right side, I could feature an anomaly plot. So in this case, I could feature an anomaly plot for the St. Petersburg water temperature values as a way to sort of highlight, what was going on during a particular time period. And if I zoom in, the data view will retain those values. So now if I click on share, I get a share link that I can post in the comments, and you should be able to click and see the same thing I'm looking at. If you go to map, you're going to have to recreate the map view. But if I use the share link at the very top, I can share that. This will offer all of the same data view and the same map view. Okay, so that is a quick overview of the portal, and I'm happy to take questions. But really quick, I wanted to show a couple of other applications that we've created that look at this same data view, but in different ways. The first one, this is not live yet. So you're getting a preview of this, and I'm going to share a link. So if you want to look at it, you can. It's not live. It's not accessible in the portal. There's no link to it in the portal yet. Okay, I can see that my screen share did not update. So I'm going to stop sharing and reshare. Okay, so this is a Tampa Bay real-time dashboard. So this is similar to the sensors map, but it's simpler. So right, in this case, we've just selected sensor stations in the Tampa Bay region. And I can click on the parameters of interest on the left side and really quickly get recent data and a visualization of where those sensor stations are. So if I hover over the sensor stations on the right side, you can see they're all updating as I move my mouse. So I get a sense of what was happening in the past day or so. If I hover over a station, I can get recent data from that sensor station. I can change variables. So I can look at wind gusts, wave heights, water temp, etc. If I want to look at these in more detail, I can click on the sensor station and dive into the full detail page. At the top, there are some other tabs. So the first tab is parameters, where we explore by parameter. I can also explore by station. So now I get a list of stations that are available on the left side. I can hover over those to see where they are on the map, or I can just hover over the stations and again get a quick time series. If I click on a station, I get all of recent data for that station within the past day. I can click on the title to get to the station detail page, or click on a sensor to get to the sensor detail page. This next view is a grid. So this is showing the most recent measurement within the past 4 hours. If data has been collected in the past hour, it's bold. So on the far left, the first column, we're getting the sensor station it was collected from, and then we get a series of variables as the other columns. So for instance, Clearwater Beach, the most recent air temp is 58 degrees, air pressure, water level, etc. If I click on any of these, I'm going to get a detailed plot for that variable at that station. This is a nice thing to just keep open on your computer. It'll refresh every 30 seconds and it'll just keep up to date. The next tab is the Marine Forecast tab. So this is using National Weather Service Marine Forecast warnings. This is pulling those in, and you can see there are quite a few warnings in this area. So I can explore each area within the map by clicking on it, same as the sensor stations, and I get a warning, whatever the warning is, if there is one, and then a forecast for the next few days. This is bookmarkable. I don't have to use the share link. I can just copy out the URL, and I can keep this as a shareable link. I can also click on the map to select that area of interest. The Resources tab just gives a list of all the available resources within the dashboard, so I can quickly get to those detail pages. So I think we're interested, if this would be of interest to folks, how we could improve it, and what other areas might be of interest. So we can fairly quickly put together a dashboard that features sensor stations from particular areas around the state or around the region. The last thing I was going to demonstrate is the Eyes on the Storm portal. This is a different way of looking at hurricanes. So this is a nice one to use during hurricane season, but we also archive all hurricanes that we've collected data for. So what this offers is a hurricane track along with sensor station data collected for that track. So if I click on a hurricane, I can see the track. This is where it went. I can hover over the points to get details about each hurricane point. And then on the right side, this is where we're including sensor station data. The high winds collected for that were collected at a sensor station during the hurricane are featured there. So this is saying, at this particular sensor station, the high wind was 107 miles per hour. If I click on that, I'm going to zoom to the point where the hurricane point, when this was the time in the hurricane when this was collected. And then on the right side, I get all sensor stations within a 50-mile radius that were collecting that variable. I can hover over these similar to the dashboard, and they'll all stay in sync. And I can see, as during a particular moment in time, what the values were for each variable. If I want to see what other variables are available, I can use the Select Variable button. So this is showing that we were able to collect pressure data from a model, but no station data. If I go back to Overview, I can just click on any particular point and look at all the variables from that point. The homepage includes a number of featured hurricanes and tropical storms over the past few years, or you can click on the Storms tab, and this has every last one that we have.
Hey, Brian, we are seeing the Tampa Bay dashboard still.
Oh no, I forgot. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Oops. I'm going to reshare. Okay, I'm just going to really quickly run through that again. Okay, so this is the homepage for the hurricane portal. I'll paste it in the chat. As I mentioned, there are a number of featured hurricanes on the homepage, a few per each year, kind of the big ones, or you can look under storms, and everyone will be there. During hurricane season, there will be an active hurricanes area at the top, and anything that shows up that comes through as a tropical storm or hurricane will be there in the active category. Once that hurricane has been archived, then it'll go under the year. I can click on these, or I can click on the links on the homepage. The overview tab shows the highest values, and if we had some barometric pressure data, it would show the lowest barometric pressure collected along the hurricane track. In this case, we've just got wind data for this hurricane track. I can click on one of these, and the map will zoom to the point where it was collected. So this is the sensor station where that high value was collected. I can see at what point it was collected by hovering over the plot. Again, if I want more detail, I can just click on that and I get that full sensor station page. This includes quality control data. This is taking a little while to load. I'm not sure if my internet's having trouble. I'm going to go back to the map for now. But that would offer that quality control data as well as download links. But that's the same detail page that we looked at before. Or I can go back to overview and I can just click on each of these points. And once I'm at a point, I can change the variable that's selected. So in this case, we're looking at winds, but I could instead choose to look at air temperature, precipitation, etc. Okay. Any questions? Anything folks are interested in looking at in particular? I'm happy to go through that. I'm going to reshare my screen using the main portal.
It looks like Matthew has his hand raised. So Matthew, you're welcome to just turn your mic off or turn your mic on and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect, great.
Yes.
Thanks, Brian, for the perfect presentation. I have a question regarding the last thing that you showed, the real-time dashboard. I'm working on a project in which I need to kind of put together a couple of data sources from SECOORA website and build a real-time dashboard, but I need to kind of make the data to go through some normalization and weight assignments and then present them on the website. So I was curious if there is like any kind of API kind of thing that I can have access to the data, like as soon as the data is published on the website, I need it to be processed, go through this pipeline that I have designed and published in the real-time dashboard that I'm working on. I was just wondering if there's any advice or anything that you can point me through.
Okay, so each sensor station, it sounds like you're interested in sensor station data in particular?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to any sensor station plot, you get these download links at the bottom. And this goes into ERDAP. And ERDAP is a full, let's see, you're not seeing that. I'll reshare. So this is the page that opened up for me. There's a UI around this, but there's also an API that you can use. So this might be a good thing you could send us a feedback ticket and we could help you explore some of the options, but just real quick, there's a full catalog here where you can see all the sensor stations available. And then each sensor station, you can select data in a variety of formats, including CSV, NetCDF, JSON, etc.
Great, perfect. Thank you so
Is
much.
that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Can you please share an email address or a way to communicate with you so that I can kind of follow up later on if I need to?
The best place to do it would be, and if it's just a general question, you could use the home page, but would be to use the share link in the upper right. Sorry, the feedback link.
Okay.
So if you click on feedback, it wouldn't just be me, a number of people would get it. And so whoever is best suited to help you can help you with this. And this starts an email thread. So a lot of times we'll have, several back and forth emails
Perfect.
with this.
Great.
But
Thank you.
this is a good way to start it. And if there's a particular sensor station you're interested in, you could select that one. Or if there's a area within the catalog that features the sensor stations you want, you could use that.
Perfect.
And that just gives
Thank
us
you so
some
much.
context.
Yep, great. Thanks.
Okay, cool.
All right, so it looks like Natalie also has her hand raised. If you want to just chime in with your question, Natalie.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really helpful overview of how to use the maps on the SECOORA site. But I see that the data was last updated at the end of September. Did you say this already? How frequently the database will be updated to display like near real-time data collections? We've been doing our uploads, I think it's monthly. So it'd be nice to know what the lag time is.
I'm sorry, which data set were you looking at?
Well, I was looking at our data set. It would be nutrients and sensor data, but also I just pulled up HABs in the Carenia brevis collection, and it looks like it's only shown until September 2024.
Okay, so let's start with that. Okay, is your nutrients data a sensor station or a moving platform, like a glider?
It's a station.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess and we can talk maybe about it later on, but how frequently is this data updated? Is it supposed to be near real time for these data sets?
It really depends on the sensor station, but some of the sensor stations are collected even more frequently than hourly. Um, some, those would be ones that automatically provide data where we have, a way to access the data without human intervention.
Mhm.
Some of them involve like an upload, like I think you're talking about, and in that case, that's kind of an opportunistic thing when we're able to, get the data in the format that we need.
Okay, then
Um,
maybe we can chat about it later because we've been doing
yeah.
monthly updates, but our data I think ends in some midpoint in 2024, so we can try to figure that out.
Oh, great. Yeah. And so a helpful thing would be to, if you browse to the sensor station and then we can, um, and use the feedback link, then we can quickly
Okay,
identify what's going on. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. As far as the HAB data, that's kind of a different thing. I'm not sure exactly what the original data source was, but that would be a good thing to have updated. I don't think we have a real-time pipeline for that right now.
Okay.
Any other questions or things people are interested in looking at?
All right, well, I think that hits all of the questions. I will put the communications email in the chat. If anyone thinks of any questions later on, I can forward them to Brian or Karina. Thank you for joining us today. And as a reminder, this was recorded and will be available on our website and our YouTube channel by the end of the week. So if there was anything on here that you want to reference when you're trying to navigate the data portal, you're welcome to just go to our YouTube and find the video. So thank you, Brian, for doing that amazing tutorial on the portal. I know it was super helpful for me, and I hope to see everybody at our next webinar.